Speech off.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So I'm here to talk about the rest of the books I read in June. I'm probably going to film 3 videos and upload them all in the same day just because the rest of the week is supposed to get really hot and filming conditions are not great around here when it's hot. Like I said in my last video, my AC sounds like a truck and I don't feel like screaming over it. So everything will be filmed and uploaded today if possible. Also, when it's hot, the internet is really slow. So, yeah, you're going to get a video dump. So, watch at your own discretion or whenever you want to watch. But, yeah, you'll probably see a few videos. Unless the internet is slow. We'll see. Anyway, so this is the second half of my June reading. I meant to update last week and time just got away from me, so this could be long. So get a drink, sit tight. I did have a few DNFs, so we're going to start with 2 of them, just because I'm going in order. A lot of these books are actually new releases that Chloe from Always Booked talked about in her June new release video. They all just sounded so good, and so I read, weirdly enough, the majority of the ones on my TBR. I still have a couple left. 1 or 2 left that I have not read. It's kind of crazy. Anyway, so the first one is a DNF from that, actually. It's called Lies Made Perfect by Ellie Banks. This was released on June 11th. It sounded really good at the time. So this is about a popular true crime podcaster, Margot. She's been kind of in limbo for the past 6 months because her daughter was taken away. Poppy, her father abducted her. And when I first read about this or heard about this book, I thought, okay, bad custody battle, like dad is terrible, all of that. Now I get the impression, I don't think the dad did the right thing, but it also sounds like she wasn't really being very attentive to her kid, and she was like super fame hungry. So right off the bat, I didn't really like her very much. And it was hard for me to feel bad for her, which sounds really judgy and judgmental. And so I tried to, I'm like, okay, this isn't not all is as it seems, and let me give her a little bit more of a chance. But as I kept reading, I just didn't like her the more I read. She's, one of her friends was basically went off with her other friend's father. So this was like a teacher-student underage relationship, and they kind of disappeared together and they never saw them again. And so, she's been sort of obsessed with this case. And she gets, a letter, and she finds a letter in a free little library box that I guess is kind of, connects to this case. And so she wants to kind of investigate it to sort of have something else to think about besides the fact that Poppy's missing. But I don't know. It just didn't sit right with me because she was almost demanding that everybody involved in this case, her friend, her friend's father is the one who took this girl. And then this girl's brother, the missing girl's brother, she has kind of a thing for him. So she almost had an affair with him. It's all just really messy, and she was practically not demanding, but she needed them to give her their blessing in order to investigate this, and she wouldn't stop bugging them until she got it. So, even the guy, the missing girl's brother, was like, you're going to do this anyway, but you want somebody to make you feel better by giving you permission to essentially investigate this case. And that's when I kind of just gave it up because she was just so unlikable to me. that I don't know. I don't like being so judgy about, like, a mom whose kid was missing. I mean, like, I read women's fiction all the time and I judge parents, okay? Like, sue me. I judge parents. It's kind of my right in literature to, like, sort of be allowed to pass judgment because I'm not going to hurt anyone's feelings. So I can just say, you're terrible people and you don't exist. So, you know, it's fine for me to just have a black and white view of you. But this just felt uncomfortable, disliking this girl, this woman. But, so yeah, I kind of just gave it up. I didn't care enough to keep going because, like, it's like, to me, it sounded like the husband took the kid away and she wasn't paying attention to the kid anyway. I'm not saying that she deserved to be kidnapped, but it was kind of like, I don't know. It didn't feel like he was a terrible father, I guess? I don't know. And then there was, like, something hinting that maybe the kid is dead, and it's like, but is she? I mean, I don't know. It was a weird book. I just wasn't into it. Next, I DNF'd The Stars Are Fire by Anita Shreve. This one sounded really interesting, but it just wasn't. It's about after a summer-long drought, fires break out all along the Maine coast from Bar Harbor to whatever, and are soon racing out of control from town to village. 5 months pregnant, Grace Holland is left alone to protect her 2 toddlers when her husband, Gene, joins the volunteer firefighters. Along with her best friend Rosie and Rosie's 2 young children, Grace watches helplessly as their houses burn to the ground, the flames finally forcing them all the way into the ocean as the last resort. They spend the night frantically protecting their children and in the morning find their lives forever changed. Homeless, penniless, awaiting news of their husbands' fates, and left to face an uncertain future in a town that no longer exists. So it sounds really exciting on the surface, but, like, it feels like there's not a lot of plot at the beginning, and, well, this woman is obsessed with sex. Like, and her husband is terrible, and you see, like, well, some abuse of the sexual nature, and it was just too disturbing to read. So I gave it up before I got to the good part where they're all having to jump into the ocean to save their lives. Also, it felt like a lot of vignettes, kind of, instead of, like, chapters. We kept jumping from scene to scene really fast. I don't know. I just didn't like the pacing or really any of it, which sucks because I've had it on my TBR forever. Anyway, but yeah, there's that one. So 2 DNFs in a row. Then I finished reading Growing Up Duggar. It's the book that the 4 Duggar girls wrote before all the scandals happened. It's just them living their lives. I meant to read it. And ever since Jill wrote her book, I had been going back and reading the old Duggar books, the first 2 by Michelle, and now this one. I don't know. I feel like Jill was the majority of the one who read a lot of the scenes and wrote a lot of it, which I'm not that surprised by. So, I don't know, it's just the way they live their lives, whether you agree or disagree, you know, it's kind of irrelevant. Had some entertaining stories, though. So I give it 4 stars. Then, I read Otherwise Known as Sheila the Great by Judy Blume. I'm going to talk about these in another video. It's part of the Fudge series, so I give it 4 stars. Then I read another new release that was in Chloe's video, Let's Pretend This Will Work by Maddie Dawson. So this one is about Mimi Perkins. She is in her 30s. She's single and longs for love. So she meets Ren Yardley, a handsome divorced fellow drama teacher and single father. They fall in love or whatever, and then he proposes, and she's sure this is her happily ever after. But then he receives a call that his ex-wife has been in a car accident, and he needs to move into the marital home to care for her and his daughters. Now, this sounded really interesting at the time because I thought his daughters were children. And, I, was going to be ultimately happy when this Brady Bunch family worked out in the end, even though that means that things don't work out for her, Mimi. But turns out, these two girls are adults and spoiled brats, honestly. Ugh. I don't know. So, I'm not saying his ex-wife didn't need any help, but it feels different when you think about him going into the marital home to help take care of his small children versus going in there to take care of his adult children and his ex-wife, who actually didn't even raise these kids. He raised these kids, and she was like a career woman who was not interested in parenting. So that made it interesting. Anyway, so he gets Mimi to follow him there, and he basically has her living in this apartment building. Or was it an apartment? I can't remember. But it's above a daycare, essentially. And so she kind of starts helping out with this daycare and meets this single father that sort of, is kind of the alternate option to Ren, who is terrible in the end because he's just stringing her along, and he doesn't want her involved in his family life because he's scared of his children. So you kind of hate him from the beginning. But then this daycare that's supposed to be endearing, I think this is the 70s or 80s or something. So they're kind of just learning about different parenting styles, and so they're very much against preschool and learning, and this is all play, the daycare. So we're all supposed to be against preschool. And I don't know, just establishments in general or organization are seen as bad, which I kind of disagree with. So already it's kind of I'm already disagreeing with the protagonist in this book. And honestly, the little kid that's in this book is infuriating. I don't know. I never really find kids in books annoying the way some people do, but this kid and then her dad, the single father that's kind of the big, main one in this book, apart from Ren. So, it's essentially kind of competition. He's a single father because, Alice, his mother, the little girl, passed away. And, Alice's family wants to take charge of him and Alice and give Alice a structured life. And you're not supposed to agree with them, but I ended up agreeing with them because it's I don't know. It was just very annoying the way he was. Alice, do you want to put your seatbelt on? Alice, would you like to get your plate from the cupboard? Everything was asking her permission, and I'm not saying I want parenting to be all bossiness, but good grief. Can you give an order sometimes? I almost wanted him to say, now, or because I said so. And I despise those phrases from adults to kids. But I legit wanted this kid to be spanked. And I'm also against that. But this kid was so annoying. So 3 stars. Then I read The Mother Next Door by Leah Mercer. I gave this one 4 stars. This one's about 3 or 4 different families who, they were kind of they were sort of part of something bad that happened a long time ago, and they're not really friends anymore because of it. But their kids all sort of go to the same school, so yeah. Anyway, they all discover that their kids are missing, and Lou, who is like the parent who picks up all the kids and everything, is also missing. So why did she take these kids? And like everybody thinks she basically tells them, I know your secret or whatever. And everybody thinks that they know what secret she's talking about. But it turns out they're wrong. And it's this really huge secret that they're all keeping. I can't really say what the secret is, but it's wild. So yeah, it's all about them having to like fess up to their sins in order to get their kids back. So yeah, there's that. Then I read Super Fudge. I gave it 5 stars. It's part of the Fudge series. I'll talk about that in another video. Then I read A Time to Dance by Karen Kingsbury. I gave this one 4 stars. This is about John and Abby Reynolds. They're a couple who've been together for years. Everybody thinks they're like the perfect couple and all that. It's very interesting how Karen Kingsbury's books all have these, and she makes an emphasis on it, like these very good-looking couples that everybody's like jealous of, and they all have issues. I don't know. There's just something about her always focusing on their looks that kind of bugs me a little bit. Like, why can't you have a geeky guy or something who's not as good looking fall in love? Why does it have to be like this handsome, hunky football player? I don't know. It just feels a little bit like classist, kind of. Anyway, not that they're bad people, but like, can we have a computer nerd in one of your books or something? Why does it always have to be a football player? Or something sporty? Anyway, whatever. But yeah, they're on the verge of divorce, and right when they're about to announce this divorce, their daughter announces that she's getting married, and so they basically have to put off the divorce until after the wedding, or I guess they don't have to, but they do. The reason for their divorce is just, they're basically, they grew apart. She's raising kids, he's away, or, working and stuff, and just the usual stuff. So it's, I don't know. I never really, blamed one side or the other, which is rare for me because I'm usually on one side or the other. I'm very black and white. Yeah. So this one that Chloe also read from Always Booked. She read it this month, and so I've been meaning to read this one for years, or this duology. I read the second book, though. She hasn't. The one thing I do disagree with her on, though, is that I think you could have ended this book right there, and it would have been a fine ending. I don't think you needed a sequel, although I did enjoy the sequel, which is A Time to Embrace. I feel like everything was pretty much resolved in the first book. I don't see why we needed a sequel, but either way, I'm glad we got the sequel. But, yeah. So, there's that. I gave both of them 4 stars. The sequel's called A Time to Embrace. Then I read The Midwife's Promise by Eliza Graham. I gave it 4 stars. I'll read the description. Sophie's hand trembles as she places the birthday card onto the creamy wood of her dresser. This one postmarked from far away, and signed with a name she's never forgotten, despite their years apart. Downstairs, guests wait around a colorful pile of gifts. Happy 90th birthday, Sophie. But Sophie has a gift of her own to give today. A tattered collection of photographs she's never shown anybody. Holding it to her heart, a single tear slides down her wrinkled cheek. New England, 1992. Oh, that was, I don't know why they put that. Anyway. That was supposed to be at the beginning where you talk about the current timeline. France, 1942. Sophie is folding Camille into her arms, kissing her daughter's hair. She's smiling through tears at the plaintive cries of a tiny, perfect newborn baby, her first grandchild. As a midwife, she's helped so many take their first breath, but this is special. In the street outside, Nazi soldiers patrol day and night. and each week more people disappear. Sophie clenches her fists and vows she'll do anything to save Camille and her baby from that fate. But when evil has stolen everything you know, even the truest promises are tested. Sophie swore she'd give her life for her family. How could everything have gone so terribly, heartbreakingly wrong? So, yeah, present day, she's basically celebrating her 90th birthday. She gets this card, and we kind of go back to the past. And we hear about her time as a midwife in the 40s during the war. Her daughter Camille is basically about to get married to a German guy, and Sophie is like basically trying to help Jewish families, so she automatically sees him as the enemy because her daughter's, he's a German, and so she kind of has to keep her daughter out of her life, probably because she's scared of him and partly to protect her because she's doing dangerous things. And her daughter kind of resents her for it a bit because she was a career woman at a time when you just weren't a career woman. Like, you were judged more for it, and you were supposed to be a mom. And I think it would have been hard to have had a mom as a career woman in like the 20s and 30s. When everybody was a stay-at-home mom and yours was like working all the time. So yeah, Sophie was like a midwife, and Camille felt kind of dumped. And then when Sophie started doing resistance work, she was even less available to her. So like Camille had to have her wedding by herself and was like living with her in-laws, and she gets pregnant, and it's basically the story about Sophie having to come help her give birth and all of that. And something happens that I can't talk about, but yeah. Suffice to say that we don't see Camille in the 1992 timeline. So what happened to Camille? Why does Sophie have a son? And we don't hear about the daughter. Yeah, you have to read it to find out, but it's a good read. Then I read another book, The Secret Midwife by Soraya M. Lane. This is going to be a new auto-buy author for me. Soraya M. Lane. I gave this one 5 stars. Actually, these 2 books I found just on the Audible sale on my own. So nobody recommended them. So, yeah. The Secret Midwife. London, 1995. When on the 50th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, a news broadcast runs an appeal for information on the identity of a midwife who saved hundreds of lives. Amelia knows it is time to finally tell her story. Occupied Poland, 1942. Despite the constant presence of German soldiers in her village, Amelia is allowed certain freedoms as a midwife. The most precious is innocently cycling past Nazi checkpoints to the homes of expectant mothers on her rounds. But Amelia has a secret. For years, she's also been visiting the hidden Jewish mothers and working for the resistance, until she is betrayed. Suddenly a prisoner of Auschwitz, Amelia is surrounded by horror and despair. When she is put to work as a midwife in the camps, she realizes that she has a chance to bring a small glimmer of hope to the pregnant women of Auschwitz. Alongside a brave, imprisoned Dr. Alexei and an innocent outcast, Lena, she comes up with a dangerous plan. A plan that, if discovered, could mean a fate far worse than death. But if they act undetected, they could save countless lives. So basically the plan is to tattoo the babies with their mother's tattoo so that they'll be able to match them up after the war. And during the middle of the war, the Nazis started taking... Initially they killed the babies when they were born, which they would drown them. But they started in 1943 or something. They realized that they could just pass these babies off, the ones that were blonde and Aryan looking, pass them off as German babies and hand them off to German families to raise as little Nazis. So basically what they started doing, the midwives, was tattooing the babies with their mother's prison number in a hidden spot where the Nazis wouldn't notice, under their armpit, to match them up. I read another book like this by I think it was Anna Stewart, the midwife of Auschwitz, which was honestly, I like that one better than this one. I enjoyed this book, but in Anna Stewart's book, we actually see some of the babies and mothers come together. And in this book, we really just hear about what she did. We don't really see any of them, like, be reunited. So, but yeah, it was still a good read. Like, I loved her and Alexi and then Lena. Lena's story is really sad. Oof. But I did enjoy this book a lot. It was a good read. So, yeah. Then I read Fudgemania, 5 stars. Double Fudge, 5 stars. Talk about these later. Then I read Ready or Not by Kara Bastone. I gave this one 4 stars. This one I've been hearing about for a while, and Courtney from Ravenclaw Reads read it too. So, a surprise pregnancy leads to even more life-changing revelations. Eve Hatch is pretty content with her life. Her apartment in Brooklyn is cozy and close to her childhood best friend, Willa, but far from her Middle Western traditional family who never really understood her. While her job is only dream adjacent, she's hoping her passion and hard work will soon help her land a more glamorous role. And sure, her most recent romantic history has consisted of not one but 2 disappointing men named Derek. At least she has always known what to expect, although she finds herself expecting after an uncharacteristic one-night stand. The unplanned pregnancy cracks open all the relationships in her life. Eve's loyal relationship with Willa is feeling off right when she needs her most. And it's Willa's steadfast older brother, Shep, who steps up to help. He has always been friendly, but now he's checking in, ordering her surprise lunches, listening to all her complaints, and is suddenly kind of hot. And then there's the baby's father, who is supportive but conflicted. Before long, Eve is rethinking everything she thought she knew about herself and her world. So, yeah, this is basically like over the course of her pregnancy. I kind of want to see how they co-parent once this baby's born. I want a sequel. But yeah, the majority of this is her pregnancy. We see the baby born, but nothing much after. Her friend Willa has infertility issues, so her and her husband are trying to have a baby. That's why her and Eve's relationship is kind of tested a bit. But it's not in like a really bad way. I think it's really human, just the way she kind of steps back a bit, but she still tries to be supportive. It kind of sucks, honestly. It's sad. And then her relationship with Shep is really cute. It's a kind of romance I like, sort of friends to lovers, where, you know, apparently he's been in love with her for years. So, yeah. And then you have the baby's father, who, like the description says, is supportive but conflicted. Like, he knows what he should do, but he's also, like, kind of having to come to terms with this pregnancy. Like, you know, it was a one-night stand. They were never supposed to see each other again. So I thought it was really realistic. I didn't really hate him. I've heard about this book from other people, too, and some people hated him for being kind of not all in from the beginning, but I'm kind of like, I mean, if you sleep with someone and you never expect to see them again, and then suddenly you're going to be parents forever because they decide to keep a kid, I mean, you know, I'm not saying she shouldn't have decided to keep her. I'm just saying that this is supposed to be a nothing burger relationship. And suddenly, you're faced with being around each other for the rest of your lives. And he also had a girlfriend at the time that he found out she was pregnant, so there's that. It's complicated. So I don't blame him for being a little bit needing some time to catch up. And I think, I don't know, he was a little bit of a crybaby at times. But, hey, I don't know. I didn't hate him. So, yeah, it was an okay read. What did I give it? 4 stars. Then I read some Boxcar Children books. Mystery in the Sand. Boxcar Children number 16. 3 stars. They go on a beach vacation and they go treasure hunting and they find a locket. Who owns this locket? Then I read Oh, I read The Dead Will Tell, Kate Burkholder #6 by Linda Castillo, 5 stars. Can't really talk about it. Then I read Mystery Behind the Wall, Boxcar Children #17, 4 stars. They find a journal hidden behind the wall of the guest room in their house, and they go on a treasure hunt for a coin collection that is talked about in this journal. That was fun. Then Bus Station Mystery, Boxcar Children #18, 4 stars. They're basically riding their bikes to, or they're going to like a science fair, a science museum or something. And there's a storm, so they have to take shelter in a bus station, and they find some suspicious activity there. The bus station guy there's a whole thing about pollution, and factory workers promoting pollution, and some people want to close down the bus station. It's a whole thing. It was okay. So 4 stars. And then Benny Uncovers a Mystery, Boxcar Children #19, 3 stars. Benny and Henry work at a department store. Jewelry goes missing. Yeah. Stuff happens. That was actually the end of an era for Boxcar Children, because after book 19, Gertrude Chandler Warner passed away, so the rest of the 100-something books are written by who knows who, but written under her name. So from then on, the kids stay the same age. It's really weird. I always knew them as the same age because I probably read later books for the majority, but for the rest of the books, Henry's 14, Jesse's 12, Violet is 10, and Benny is 6. Forever. Kind of like the Babysitters Club. So yeah, I'm going to start those. I think those are a little bit more fun, honestly. I'm assuming that Gertrude Chandler Warner was maybe sick or something toward the end, so her last few books just did not hold my interest. Anyway, then I started the Baxter series again. Because I wanted to watch the show, so I thought I'd reread the whole series. So I read the prequel first, which is called The Baxters. I gave it 5 stars. I had a difficult time with it the second time around. I remember when it first came out a couple years ago, I loved it. It was like going back in time, and I was going to read Redemption, which is the next one, even though it came out years ago. I did a whole explanation on the order of the books, but I had a harder time with the Baxter's prequel because I read Redemption right after, and you can tell that they were written like 20-something years apart, because Karen Kingsbury seems to have forgotten things and details that she wrote in Redemption, and she changed them up in the prequel that she wrote recently. So, like, if you read them in order, you can see the inconsistencies. But all in all, they were still good reads. I just notice inconsistencies if you read them in that order. But yeah, I give the Baxters 5 stars. That is the wedding of Carrie and Tim Jacobs. Carrie's one of the Baxter girls. And then Redemption is where the whole series originally started. I gave that one 4 stars. I liked it more than I did before. I remember not liking that book as much, but I did this time more. Tim essentially cheats on her. The only problem, and I still have this problem, but I think I felt it more the first time I read it. Tim has an affair, and he basically wants out of the marriage, and Carrie wants to save it because, you know, she says that God wants her to stay married, even though the one reason that the Bible says you can divorce is adultery. Even her parents are like, don't you want to divorce him? Maybe? But that's fine. Like, if you want to do that, that's cool. But I draw the line at begging a guy to take you back. And that's what she was kind of doing. Like, he's telling her, I'm leaving you. I have a girlfriend. I'm moving into her house. And she's like, can we have counseling? Like, she drove me crazy the first time I read this book, and she drove me a little crazy now. Only I know how it ends, so I'm not going to say that, but it still made me a little nuts. But, yeah. It was worth it to get to the next one. Remember, by Karen Kingsbury. I gave it 5 stars. I love this book. It's about Ashley, another one of the Baxter sisters. She goes to work at Sunset Hills, like in, it's a home for Alzheimer's patients, and the Alzheimer's patients are really funny. There's this one lady named Helen who thinks everyone's a spy. You're all spies. Have you been checked before you come in here? Like, she's hilarious. But Ashley is a single mom, and we find out how she had a baby out of wedlock in Paris. It's a whole thing. Ashley is probably everybody's favorite Baxter girl, though. But I love this one. It's the will they, won't they with her and Landon Blake. That goes on for the rest of the Redemption series, by the way. Then I DNF'd another book, Little Wonders by Kate Rorick. This one was about, I didn't even get very far. It's about, I guess, some families at a preschool. This, like, really rich people preschool, and everything's organic and all of that, and everybody's judgy. So this mom takes her kid to school. He wants to be a fireman, but she'd already made him, like, a spaceship costume or something, and this kid was being like a brat, and she lost her mind on him because he wouldn't put on the costume. And I guess somebody was filming on their phone, and the video went viral. I never got to the part where it went viral. The narrator of the book was just so annoying, the audiobook narrator, that I just couldn't keep listening to it. And honestly, like, I'm supposed to, like, be against this woman who has a temper tantrum for the whole school to hear, but I was kind of on her side because this kid, it was being annoying. It's so weird how I have 2 books where I cannot stand the children in them, but it's true. Anyway, then, so yeah, I DNF'd it, and I went back to Karen Kingsbury. I read Return by her. This one was about the only Baxter boy, Luke. Well, the only Baxter boy that we know of to this point, Luke. He essentially is having a hard time after September 11th because him and his girlfriend were in the middle of doing something they shouldn't, so to speak, when his girlfriend's father called and they just decided not to answer the phone. And then the Twin Towers happened, and you know what happens after that. So it's him kind of trying to come to terms with that and ending up being friends with some weird people. Anyway, then I read The Berlin Sisters by Soraya M. Lane. I give this one 5 stars. This one is about Ava and Hannah. So Hannah and her father and mother are part of the resistance movement. Her father, and then the father and Ava are working with Joseph Goebbels. Ava is like a pretty proud supporter of the German war effort. So they don't actually bring her into the resistance plans until she accidentally stumbles on them, and then she ends up being part of it. So it's kind of that whole thing of it. So it was interesting and sad. Her having to kind of come to terms with the fact that the people she supports suck. So, yeah. Then I read An Impossible Choice by Alison Ragsdale. I give it 5 stars. Alison Ragsdale is going to be another auto-buy author for me. This one was another Chloe book that she had on her list. I like this book, but this is not the book that I thought it was going to be. So, the tagline is, mothers talk about impossible choices. But as I look at my daughter in a hospital bed, her red hair fanning out around her, my heart feels literally torn in two. Should I risk my son's life to save my daughter, or keep my little boy safe and watch my precious girl slip away? So, you think this is going to be this book about this big choice that the mom has to make between her two kids. Her daughter has bone cancer and she needs a bone marrow transplant. And her son can give it to her. But that's not really much of a plot point, I guess. I can't really say why, but you don't spend very much time with her indecision between deciding between these two children, because that situation is resolved pretty quickly. The decision she makes, or the decision that circumstances make her make eventually, because it's not up to her in the end. It's hard to explain. But yeah, it's just all very weird. And while she's making this decision, you know that there's another option for her that she doesn't want to take. I can't really say what that option is, but this book is not so much about her deciding between these two kids and whether to sacrifice the sick one to save the other one. But it is still a good read. Basically, everything terrible that can happen to this family does happen to this family. And, yeah. Really, the only objection I have is that I feel like the description is a little flawed, in that you think it's like a life or death between these two kids, that she has to pick which one to live and which one to die. But it's nothing like that at all. You barely see that in the plot. So, yeah, ultimately, it's about this family kind of working together to survive. At the beginning of the book, you see the husband, and then he apparently dies in a drowning accident on their boat. And then the daughter gets cancer, and then, yeah, she gets sicker and sicker, and the stakes are higher, and yeah, it's all just very... Everything bad that does happen can happen to this family. And then, right when you think things are awful, something really good happens. And then you feel really excited about this really good thing. And then you get to the epilogue and she makes you cry all over again. I'm not going to tell you why, but put it this way. The two books that I've read by Alison Ragsdale have an ending that you don't really see coming, and it makes you cry. So, yeah. Not always in a good way, but it's still a good read, if that makes sense. So, 5 stars. And then after this sad read, I had to end it with a great one. How to Age Disgracefully by Claire Pulley. I give it 5 stars. A senior citizen center and a daycare collide with hilarious results. This should be a comedy movie. So, when Lydia takes a job running the Senior Citizens Socials Club 3 afternoons a week, she assumes she'll be spending her time drinking tea and playing gentle games of cards. The members of the social club, however, are not at all what Lydia was expecting. From Art, a failed actor turned kleptomaniac, to Daphne, who has been hiding from her dark past for decades, to Ruby, a Banksy-style knitter who gets revenge in yarn. These seniors look deceptively benign, but when age makes you invisible, secrets are so much easier to hide. When the city council threatens to sell the doomed community center building, the members of the social club join forces with their tiny friends in the daycare center next door, as well as the teenage father of one of the toddlers and a geriatric dog, to save the building. Together, this group's unorthodox methods may actually work, as long as the police don't catch up with them first. And yeah, at the beginning of the book, you see the police catching up with them as they're on a bus. And everybody is confessing to some crime they've committed. And you don't really know who they're looking for or why they're looking for them, because everybody's done something. So that's kind of the thing that draws you into the book. And then you see all of these crazy old people like meet up and become friends and cover up each other's crimes, and like they're all what you would consider bad people, kind of, but yet you love them and they're so endearing. And then you have these kids too, like these little kids. Now these kids are fun. And then also you have the teenage father involved in it too. I kind of like that. I like the representation of a teenage father who's actually trying to take care of his kid. Although I have to say, it doesn't sound like he was given much choice. The mom wanted to give the baby up for adoption, and then his mom was like, no, he's just as responsible as you are, so if you don't want her, we get to have her. And yeah, but all in all, like, it's hard to describe this book. You just have to read it. It is amazing. Like, I was cackling the entire way through this book, and I don't read books for fun, like funny books. I read compelling stories that keep me sucked in. I don't read books to have a good laugh, but this was a good laugh. And so, yeah, those are all the books that I read second half of the month. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys in my next video. Bye.
Speech off. Stop recording video. Tap it. Stop recording video.